6 episodes in now to Star Trek The Next Generation Season 2. And I don't know, Alex, there's been some things I've liked so far, but going into this episode, I think the people might be right. I think Season 2, maybe it's not the best.
Well, you know what they say when things are down and out, they're not looking too bright. You just have to say to yourself, tonight, Gotham's relying on one man to save us all. Brent Spiner.
There are two disparate personalities within Lieutenant Commander Data.
Data is invaded by the soul of a dead scientist.
I will never have to face death again.
Are you hurting me?
That turns him into an alien Jekyll and Hyde.
Data is dead. Who's next?
And triggers a violent assault on Star Trek The Next Generation.
Why the fuck did you say Gotham?
I think this is the first time this season I love this episode.
Yeah, this episode was fantastic. And Brent Spiner, man, it's like put all my chips in on the Brent Spiner, bet, the pot, whatever. It's like, this guy can do it. And it's like, sometimes it's frustrating because we talked about it a little bit, but he's like put in this character where he's like limited to the confines of his, emotional range and ability. But it's like, they keep finding ways where it's like, we're going to let this guy shine even more with lore and now with Dr. Ira. And it's like, God, man, Brent, it's like, I know he's been in Independence Day and other stuff, but it's like, I wish he was in every movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, and when I go back to watch Independence Day, whenever it is in the future, I watch that again. I'm gonna be so shocked because obviously not knowing who Brent Spiner was and all the previous times I've watched it in my life, now it'll be so much different. And there have been other episodes in the season thus far that did focus on a side character to an extent. Like The Child with Troy, or even like the last episode, Loud as a Whisper with Troy as well. And Elementary Dear Data, I don't want to overshadow that, focused on Data too. But this one really was the first one, in my opinion, of the season that I was like, oh, it's a Data episode. Like, yes, all the other crew is involved too, but you can tell this is really focused on Data, and like, they're right to do it. He said Brent Spiner is great, the character of Data is great, and being able to see him play yet another type of role in this character is awesome. We also have W. Morgan Shepherd as an excellent guest character, only in really like the first couple acts of the episode because of where the episode goes, but he plays Ira as they beam down to this planet and meet him, and he comes off first, crotchety, irritable. I mean, they literally say these words describing him right in front of him.
He's not himself, believe me. His temper is completely out of control.
Nonsense.
Ira!
He still has like a little bit of a charm to him. It's like that old man you hate, but has a little bit of charm.
I thought you didn't like people.
Women aren't people. They're women.
He's got a little bit of, little W.
His name is W.
Yeah, and like he comes off very like overly brazen at first. It's like, oh God. But then once he gets just to him and Data, and like he starts whistling the Tin Man theme.
A dying man takes the time to mourn a man who will never know death.
Oh God, who's got the fire pen writing this? Who wrote this?
Yeah, that was next to Brent Spiner's performance. I think the writing was the strongest part of this episode. I mean, so many great lines, so many great moments, so many great scenes. And that's really all you can ask for, right? I mean, great performances with great writing, a great show makes,
Yeah, you put all the stuff in the pot and boil it together. Hopefully it comes out great, and it does. Well, a recurring name in Star Trek is Tracy Torme, who did the teleplay, and then Richard Manning, story by, and he was like a co-producer on this show, which is interesting. Yeah, I think they had these characters just figured out to a T, and that level of performance between just two high-level actors is like the most you can ever want from like any piece of television, TV, movies, whatever. And it's like, and it's like once like he's gone, it's like, and his like spirit's like, well, his brain is in Data. It's like, it's still great because we still have Brent Spiner, but it's like, man, I wanted like these two to like go on the rest of the episode together, like Grandpa and Data. And this every time we called him Grandpa, I couldn't help but laugh.
This would have been really wacky and out there, but then again, we've seen plenty of wacky stuff already in the show. Almost like a once he possesses Data, have the actor still show up as like you could have moments, because they kind of, they kind of play with a little bit how they have split personalities, but you never see Data come through. Once he's possessed, it's just Ira. But what if they had moments where Data was trying to battle with Ira, and you could have W. Morgan Shepard show up, but only in like this where Data can see him, and they have a back and forth.
When the body of Data is looking out the window, but the reflection is Ira,
Yeah.
and then like it bounces like back and forth in different scenes. And there's probably so many different types of trick photography they can do to have fun with that. I feel like that was a missed opportunity. And like that would be an interesting way to keep us interested as the story goes on, because with everyone else, we're ahead of them.
Yeah.
To the point where there's scenes where it's like we know what the issue is, but they don't, so it's like frustrating. But like if to counteract that, if we had these scenes where these two were just killing it, it would have just made it that much better.
When Ira is Data, all you have is like Ira's motivation. You don't really get to see Data interact to it at all. It would, change the story, probably, because at the end Data doesn't remember anything. You probably could still have it though. It wouldn't even matter actually, because they could have it end where he loses the memory of that and doesn't remember. That's still fine. It's not like it matters. But yeah, that would have been fun. I think that's probably maybe like the one thing we would say we didn't care for is being so ahead. I
Yeah.
did give it more slack because it was so fun seeing Brent Spiner play as Ira, trying like halfway pretending to be Data, but not really.
A man of limitless accomplishments and unbridled modesty.
That was fun for a little bit, but it did get to like, okay, guys, let's get to it.
Yeah, the beginning was like you mentioned it, like just perfect little nuances where it's like I can tell it's not Data, but it's Data enough that they're not going to be able to pick up on it yet.
It happened just a few moments ago, in my arms. Ira Graves is dead.
And then when they got to his funeral, I'm like, okay, come on, guys.
Which was still funny.
Oh,
but
it's hilarious,
like,
but
yeah.
it's like you high level, members of Star Trek, members of Starfleet should be able to, put some dots together.
Yeah, takes them a little while.
Is it possible that the loss of Graves might have affected him?
Back to my, fan fiction writing, like it could have been like so fun because he keeps calling him grandpa because he looks at him as a grandfather, and it's like he's trying to like learn about life from him, and he's like seeing him do all these terrible things, and he's like trying to learn humanity from him, but he's learning it for the worst. Like whatever it is, it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, but the episode we got was still really
yeah,
good.
yeah.
This is just us getting caught up in
Yeah,
our.
I'm just fan booking here.
Yeah.
But yeah, the stuff where like he slowly starts to divulge and just turn into Ira was very uncomfortably tense, especially the scenes with Picard.
Don't try so hard to be human. Just be yourself. All right?
Yes, sir.
We also get the introduction of a Vulcan doctor. Lieutenant Solar goes down, and what do you think of Lieutenant Solar? It was nice to have a Vulcan character in the show, but will she ever show up again? I don't know.
You have Darnay's disease. In all cases, Darnay's is terminal.
I don't know if she just studied Vulcans or just studied Spock and just studied, say all the great, but she played a Vulcan like perfectly to a T, like not one iota of anything.
Yeah.
Like not like this is me making fun of like her having no emotion because that's exactly what she should have had. Like
Yeah.
like everything that happened was just like to Ira being like pretty ridiculous, to the funeral, to everything. Just
A couple nice little notes. First, Ira bringing up that he knows Soong.
Looks like Sung's work.
Quite correct, sir. Did you know Dr. Soong?
Know him? I told him everything he knows.
And then also the moment with Worf.
Are you a Romulan?
Hardly.
That was a nice moment.
once again, like just giving us. Did Worf do anything else for the rest of this episode? No, but like we'll give you a little something. Like quit insulting me. It's
Yeah.
Like, it's all we need for right now. I'm sure we'll get to you again eventually, but it's like just to keep us interested and remind you, not remind us, but also like give him something where it's like, okay, not anything like grand, but it's like little like reminder of who Worf is and how he acts, I guess. I don't know, instead of just
Yeah, for sure. And then we get the scene, which might be my favorite scene of the episode. I don't know, there's a lot that I liked, but Data and Ira in the room alone together, and Ira just dropping multiple great one-liners in this scene.
Your existence must be a kind of walking purgatory. Neither dead nor alive.
really put his performance over the top for me. It was so great. And then Data revealing that he has an off button because Ira's like, you will never know what death feels like. He's like, well, that's not true. I can be turned off. I don't like thinking about it though. And it's like, oh, so relatable. No one likes thinking about death.
And then bring it back like, oh, assumes, predictable, let me guess. And like we don't even see what happens after that. It's like just a cut and like you're just left to assume like, oh shit, did he? Yeah.
Yeah, because then Data comes out and says that Ira has passed away, but Brent Spiner's subtle little acting, you just know right away. You can connect the dots of like, oh, that's Ira in there. They did it so well. It could have been like, they show it all and like show him doing something, but no, it's like the way they did it. I thought was great.
Yeah, I appreciate the subtle way. It was almost like, like not an obvious reveal, but it's like a questionable reveal, and then as it goes on, it becomes more and more obvious. Not like a night and day obvious switch where it's like, oh, look at this new bot, you know what I mean? Where it's like
Exactly.
just maybe a little look, maybe a little different cadence in the voice, and not like an obvious, it's me now,
The show does not want us to not know. Like the show trusts that we know what's going on. I think they make it pretty obvious. And then he also goes to 10 forward and makes comments to Kareen where he's like,
Ira never told you how beautiful you were to him. He never told you that, did he?
it's okay. It's obviously Ira.
Yeah.
The scene on the bridge with Wesley. This is an example of like, I love this moment, but in like a cheesy way. Like I'm not saying this moment is good, but I just personally love cheesy moments like this.
When you get to be my age, you will understand.
Chronologically, you're not much older than I am.
It's like,
And it's
oh
just,
yeah.
like, so over the top, like cartoonish acting. It like doesn't fit in the rest of the episode, but just that one moment, he's just like, I just like love that.
I think it fits because of who Ira is. Maybe he's
yeah.
like, oh, it's like he's obviously not great at keeping up the facade.
One nice little thing I like too is how Ira was whistling "If I Only Had a Heart." And I don't love pop culture references in Star Trek because it always brings me back to, oh yeah, this is when the show was made. So I like that this reference predates, when Star Trek was made. Like it's something from, far in the history. And Wizard of Oz is such like a classical story that I could believe centuries later, like it's in the public domain, people are still going to know what Wizard of Oz is. Like I can buy that.
Yeah, I can believe that Willy Wonka and the Chocolate, all those timeless classics are going to live forever. And then he does it again later. And
Data, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been much more effective if all the obvious stuff where it's clearly Ira, if everything was played like super straight, where he was perfectly impersonating Data, then as he's walking away, maybe you don't even see him on screen, you start hearing the whistle. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
yeah.
Oh shit! Instead of this like so obvious where it's him.
Yeah, that would have been really good. It would have been a risk though. Like it would have been like if they tried to trick the audience until that moment.
Yeah.
Because if at any point we had figured it out and put it together, then that moment falls flat, I almost liked the fact that they right away did not try to hide that it was Ira, but it does make the whistling moment kind of meaningless because we already know that it's Ira. So who are you fooling in this moment?
Do you think it would have fell flat, or do you think people would be like, I knew it?
Well, they would have to. That's what I'm saying is that they would have had to have done it good enough to where people didn't catch on.
Yeah.
Because if they tried to trick us, but we caught on anyway, then they've failed. So
yeah,
they didn't take the risky approach. They did the obvious approach.
Yeah, and with 45 minutes, how do you keep it entertaining without, the fun teases?
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, it's fun. I mean, don't get me. The funeral was fun. It was hilarious.
Loved him from afar. Data. I'm almost finished, sir.
You are finished, Data.
But it's like, if you don't have that and you keep everything straight as an arrow until you get to a possible whistle, it's like, what do you do? What do you do?
Maybe if when he came out and announced he was dead, like if that was still straight Data and then they beam up and like just the first one or two scenes he's still straight Data and then it's the reveal, like get to the reveal kind of quickly so that we don't have to go through 25 minutes of the episode, thinking it's Data.
Yeah, just like I needed the whistle to be the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whistle being the first thing would have been amazing.
Yeah, but as it was still a neat little callback.
Yeah, yeah.
But it didn't have like that effectiveness it could have.
Mhm.
Picard kind of confronts Data, and he's like, "I can run my own tests. Everything's fine."
It's like, of course.
So he's like, "All right, well, I don't believe you." So they run tests on him, and this is when Troy reveals that he has multiple personalities going on. And I didn't even think of it that way until she brought it up. I was wondering, oh, how are they going to get Data back? So it's like that's the excuse for that. But at no point throughout any of the episode did they display multiple personalities. It was always Ira once he took over.
Yeah, she mentioned that like the one is killing the other, like the one's becoming less and less. Like I don't know, maybe it's like the sunken place type thing.
Yeah. But the episode is named after the idea of having multiple personalities. So it's just weird they don't play into that at all.
It's the test with like the blocks on his head.
Yeah, the psychological test.
And he's watching like episodes from the first season. They showed frickin' Denise Crosby. It's like, what?
Yeah, that's pretty ballsy.
Yeah, it's like, hey, remember you could have been on the show, you dumb.
Yeah, and then they also showed Remick as well, a picture
Yeah.
of Remick in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was neat. Then this is one of those stories where realistically, there's not really any way that they can get out of it because like he's in Data's body, as you said, the strongest one on the Enterprise. There's not really any way they're gonna be able to defeat him. So they have to make the story to where this guy starts making these mistakes and convinces himself to give up. So I thought they did it convincingly with like knocking out Geordi, breaking Kareen's hand, and then hitting Picard as well and realizing like, oh, this isn't right. But I don't know. What'd you think about it?
I don't know. This is the first time we got like a decent Picard speech, I feel like, where he's talking about like no life has the right to usurp another life, and like he kind of puts over Data, where it's like, Data is a life form. He's not just an android. He's unique. He's different, yes, but he's unique, and he deserves to live. You've had your chance, and all that. It's like,
I am man. He is machine. There is no question who must live and what must die.
What of Data?
But that scene with Picard and Data when he's talking to him from the lower level and Data's up on the top level and he's, saying he's like, it's so obvious what needs to happen here. I'm a human. He's a machine. It might be one of the best scenes of the show thus far, just that conversation. And I thought it made me think it could have actually been an interesting way to go if, because Ira is just obviously kind of sinister and like not a good guy, so it makes it easier to be like, oh, we want to get rid of you and save Data. If he had just done it like without their permission or anything and then came out and just like told everybody, oh yeah, I took over Data's body, and they're all like, oh, what the hell? And he's like, who cares, it's just a machine, like I'm a human, preserve me. And there was like a dialogue about like, oh no, but we all like love Data and we need Data. Okay, but what is Data? Is that worth preserving over this human life? The episode doesn't go into that conversation, but that scene made me think of like they touched on it a little bit where it's like, no, I should be the one saved. I'm the human. Okay, well Data's not human, but like Picard kind of sums it up.
Yeah.
But it would have been interesting if they went at the episode that way of like if he had just been open and honest and been like, yeah, I saved my life by taking over this android body. Who cares about Data? It wasn't a human or anything, and the whole crew having to come to terms with like, is it right to essentially kill this human to get Data back? That could be an interesting story.
Yeah, I think that's definitely another Star Trek episode that possibly did happen. It's like, and maybe instead of an older man with the disease, like maybe it's like a younger man with the disease.
Yeah, because he said you already had your life. Like, what if it's a kid even?
Yeah, it's like, oh god,
that could be an interesting one.
Yeah, that's a can of worms if there ever was one.
Ira just kind of realizes what he's doing is wrong, puts his knowledge into another computer, but he can't save his consciousness because it's just a computer, at least that we know of. They say that it doesn't. And Data comes back, has a nice little fun moment on the bridge to end the episode. What'd you think of the ending?
And you don't remember anything?
Not a thing. Does wrestling with a Klingon Targ ring a bell?
I don't know. I wish Data retained some of that. I wish he retained another little piece of humanity from Ira. Like, well, he took over me, but he left a piece of himself, and I don't know.
And maybe
instead of just like him just not experiencing any of that, it's like,
and maybe being like, oh, I've always wanted to be human. Now I kind of got to experience what it's like, but I didn't like that. You know what I mean? Like I didn't like what he was doing in my body. So maybe they just didn't have the time, to flesh that all out.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, Data does start the episode by having a beard and trying to be human.
Well, opinions?
It's, very different.
Yeah, which was another detriment that he just did not keep it the rest of the episode.
Yeah, he should have had a beard the whole time.
Oh, he should have. Yeah, and there should have been a fun scene with Riker with their brand new beards.
I want to talk about Riker real quick. So Dr. Crusher is gone so far in this season, and she was my favorite character. I also really liked Riker in the first season, but he had kind of just gotten pushed to the side at the end. And we're 6 episodes in now, and he has done nothing. Like, out of all the characters, even Worf, like, out of all of them, he's the one that has really done nothing. So it's been a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, it's almost like their plan to like shoehorn him into the captain's position didn't work. So it's like, well, now what? So he's just like there, and it's like he has no. Sounds horrible, but he has no like unique quality yet besides leading man. But he's not the leading man, and he's not doing leading man things. So it's like, what do we do?
Yeah, in our season 1 wrap up video, we asked the question of like, what does he do? And we got some comments that said basically like, oh, well, he just, he makes sure stuff gets done. And it's like, okay, can you show more of that then? Like, can you show him getting stuff done? Because, I think maybe the one episode where he does the exercise with Worf, in there in the big cloud, and this, like, he gets used a little bit there. But yeah, thus far, he's just really either barely been in the episode or just been in the background. That's the one thing I hope changes in this season as it goes on, because obviously I love Jonathan Frakes, so I would like to, and he has the beard now. Everyone says he's supposed to get better when he gets his beard, so I'm waiting.
Yeah, hopefully, just like how we waited for like the good Worf episode, hopefully that good Riker episode is just in the tank somewhere. And like, I think he lasted the entire show, so
yeah, I would hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm assuming there is something that happens, but I need a little more meat on the Riker bone.
Did I win?
All right, it's time once again to jump into our patron takes. If you're new here, our patron takes is where our patrons that support us over on Patreon get to let us know what they think of the episode, predict how we're going to feel about it, ask us questions, and we only get to read a few of them here for the video, but there's a whole discussion for every episode, so go check that out over on the Patreon.
From Data Droid, prediction, you're disappointed Data didn't keep the beard for the rest of the episode.
100%.
100%.
This one's from Greg. He says, Dr. Solar, what did you guys think of her? Would you like to see more of her in the future? If so, doing what? I would like to see more of her. I'm not going to say that like her performance was amazing or anything. She didn't have a huge role. She did well playing a Vulcan. But the show is sorely missing Vulcans. And I like that it's doing new things and it's having different characters. But I can't ever just like not love a Vulcan. So.
Yeah, love the two Vulcans we've seen the most being Spock and Sarika, obviously. And I would love another Vulcan for sure, but it's like to the point to where I don't want it to be just another Spock. How do we make this Vulcan different from Spock? But all Vulcans for the most part are supposed to be, they've got it figured out what they do. They're pretty much all the same, I believe. You know what I mean? So it's like, how do you make that interesting with having, it's got to be like a rare, like once in a while type character. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. I don't worry about it as much with like the Vulcans all being the same as Spock, as long as like, Spock's not in the show. So so it's like if this character was here all the time, yeah, it's similar to Spock. Oh, here's one thing. I think it being a female helps it a lot too. Okay. Like if it was a male and it looked exactly like, Spock with the haircut and everything and acted like Spock, it'd be like, oh. But it being a woman, I know it's cliche to say, but like, yeah, it does help differentiate. Imagine if they had like a female version of another character's, or like, female Klingon or something,
Okay, The Force Awakens. All right, this one's from Badger. I forgot to bring this scene up because it was like very unique. The teaser features a scene of Dr. Pulaski taking the turbolift on a corridor and arriving to the bridge in the same shot. This was achieved by the creative use of blue screen projecting the ship's corridor, then the bridge into the background when the turbolift door is closed and open. I saw that. I'm like, I've never seen that before. Like the same exact shot. And I thought, oh, that's really unique. But it's like everything else happens. I forgot about it. And I'm glad Badger commented that. So that was a very cool shot.
Yeah, it was, for sure.
Filmmaking.
Andreas.
Oh, boy.
This is, for some reason, by far, my least favorite episode of TNG.
What?
And I haven't watched it in ages. The old guy creeps me out so much and makes me feel so uncomfortable. While Brent Spiner's performance is great as always, I just hate the character he plays too much to enjoy this. Um, wow, okay. I will say that's probably the strongest one I've seen. I've seen a few of them in here that have said they don't care for the episode or they think it's a weird episode.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think maybe just the performance and the acting talent of Brent Spiner blinds us to everything they're talking about because I loved every second of that. The old guy, when he very first showed up, was like, yeah, obviously creepy and unlikable, but I felt like that was the point of his character. So then, like, the scene he had one-on-one with Data more endeared me to him, like, while realizing, yes, this is a flawed person, obviously not a good person per se, but it endeared me enough to where when he took over Data, I was in for the ride. So, least favorite is that's a shocking take.
That's crazy because I really like this one.
So, Andreas, you like Code of Honor more than this episode.
What does that say about
How
you?
does that feel? How does it feel?
Yeah, the amount of people just like, don't really care for this one. It's like, really?
Yeah, it's always interesting. I like seeing the different reasons that people like episodes. You know what I mean? Because like we clearly, I think a lot of times look into episodes more for their like filmmaking or like technical aspects going into it. Like, yeah, I like being able to see stuff from like inside of canon of the show and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like just a great actor performance or great writing, great one-liners to me can like really make an episode. And sometimes people, not that they don't care about that, they like all that, but sometimes people are more so looking for more in-show canon stuff that they like to see. You know what I mean?
Okay,
So
yeah.
it's just interesting to see the differences there. But yeah, no, I mean, even all that aside, I mean, we had some problems with the episode, but like I said, this is the first one of the season that I would come away saying I loved.
Yeah, for sure. It's just weird. I just find that so fascinating. That's how interesting Star Trek is. That some people can be like, "Oh, this is the best episode of the season," and some people are like, "This is the worst episode." It's like,
Yeah. And I think that's also a benefit of episodic TV. Like, you don't have to be fully anthology. I can't say that word. It's my caricature. You don't have to be a complete anthology. Even just being an episodic show, you're going to have people have different opinions because you remember the stories of the episodes because they're all so different. When someone talks about a serialized show, like, it's just different. It's like, I know, like, I'm going to use a show I haven't even seen, but like Breaking Bad, right? Serialized show. Like, I know there are probably certain episodes of Breaking Bad that people are like, that's an amazing episode. But in general, do people really go like, oh man, season 3, episode 4, I like, you know what I mean? It's like they more so just talk about it as a whole, or at the very least, the season as a whole, because seasons usually have like their own story.
yeah, and those are more like cut into telling a longer story. When this one is kind of like Star Trek's kind of presented as just individual episode stories where it's like where they can be compared. Like
Yeah.
judging episodes on a show like Breaking Bad, it just feels weird because it's like it's telling a long continuous story.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And even though I'm sure there, like with any show, are highlight episodes and like ones that are really
Yeah,
good,
yeah,
that,
yeah.
like, or Barry comes to mind, like, the episode where he goes to the grocery store and the guy's house, right? That episode where he gets in the fight at the guy's house.
Yeah.
Like, there's highlight episodes of Barry, but it's telling one story,
Or like I always find when people try to compare like original movies and their sequels, where it's like they're doing two different jobs there. You know what I mean? Like the one's a continuation of the story, the one's the original. It's like, you know what I mean? I mean, one could be like a better movie, like T2 or something, or Empire, but it's like they're doing two different jobs. For the most part, episodes of Star Trek, they're doing the same job, just like different ways.
Yeah. 100% agree. I think it might get a little bit different as we get into season finales of the show. I think as we go along here, they might start to feel more like season finales. Like I thought the season finale of this first season, it didn't like set up a huge thing, but like just like the Romulans returning, it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of like a season finale thing. You know what I mean?
The first real like season finale of Star Trek, because the first first four that we've seen were not.
Yeah.
So
maybe in that way, but overall, yeah, it's very interesting to see. But we're right.